What's going on, guys? This is The 100 TV, and this is episode 1 of Prison Stories. This story in particular is the story of Brother Anthony. At this particular time, I was on Sussex 2. I had just been sentenced to 19 years with a current total of 144 years over my head in the wonderful Commonwealth of Virginia. At the time, Sussex 2 was known as Saigon, or a place where it just wasn't somewhere you wanted to be. It was hostile, it was violent, it was the type of environment that they probably do write a lot of prison movies about, etc. But yet and still, here's the story of Brother Anthony. Brother Anthony, at the time that I had known him, was a pretty, as far as could be in the penitentiary, a pretty stand-up guy. We had worked together in the kitchen. We worked in a dish room, and he had just basically walked down an 11-year sentence. He was finally able to go home, but there was one problem. He was not home yet. The funny thing about the penitentiary is it has a way of catching up with you, just like the streets do. And some things had happened in the following days as Brother Anthony had got shorter and shorter in regards to his sentence and closer to going home. The first thing that happened was he had ran up a debt. And this debt was owed to a certain individual, and how the debt would be basically squashed was Brother Anthony, when he would be packed up in order for him to go home, would give his television set to the gentleman that he owed the debt to. To put things into perspective, the television set probably valued about $35. It was a black and white E-Tron television set from what I've heard, because I didn't see the TV, and it was a 5-inch screen. Nonetheless, Brother Anthony owed a debt. At the same time that he was supposed to be giving the individual his TV to basically squash the debt, his cousin had came up on the compound, and his cousin had some time to do, and he told Brother Anthony, said, "Man, I need your TV, anything that you have." Brother Anthony, being a loyal family member, decided to give the TV to his cousin instead of the gentleman that he owed the debt to. That was a bad move. Now, where it kind of really got crazy was anytime that you get short on an institution, especially back then, because back then they didn't separate you according to time. It wasn't based on that. It was based on where you were at in the point system. So you could have a guy that had 6 months or 6 days versus a guy that had 6 life sentences all on the same compound. It was not a good recipe for success, especially for the guys that were short and getting ready to go home. 2 days before Brother Anthony was scheduled to go home, he decided he wanted to go out and basically go out to the rec yard and work out. He thought he was safe because at the time it was controlled movement, which basically means anywhere you moved within the compound or institution, it was a controlled movement. You only moved with the dorm that you were housed in, from the chow hall to programs, etc. It was so controlled that while you're in the dorm, a guy or a gentleman or CO would stand in this tower sort of thing with a shotgun, basically ready to aim rubber bullets at your head should you accidentally forget and cross a red line that they had so conveniently placed on the floor. It was that type of institution. It was the type of institution or prison where when you were walking the chow, they also had people holding guns on top of the building. They had people holding guns with the rubber bullets down on you while you were eating chow. And as well, they had dogs that used to walk behind you as you worked your way to the chow hall or program, school, etc. Well, Brother Anthony thought he was safe because the movement was extremely controlled. But what happened next was, when he went out to the yard, the compound was also crooked. All this is documented, so I can talk about it now free and clear. What happened was, after that, one of the COs or guards decided to let the gentleman that Brother Anthony had owed the debt to and a couple of his friends onto the yard where Brother Anthony was at. I guess you can imagine what happened. It wasn't soon after that this gentleman and a few of his friends, etc., had jumped Brother Anthony. They had beat him bad. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in hand-to-hand combat, warfare, just witnessed it, even watching a boxing match on TV. It is possible to be knocked out and still on your feet. When he got knocked out, He was still on his feet, but he was incoherent. And he started to follow the same individuals around that had just beat him quite badly. It's crazy because looking back at this, I know he didn't know what he was doing. As this was unraveling, some of us were on a separate yard across the boulevard or a separate place. We were on a basketball court and we were yelling over him to just chill. You're about to go home. He was literally supposed to go home 2 days later. And he just wanted to hit the hard one last time. But he kept following the guy that he owed, the guys that had just beat him. And he kept saying, man, why'd you beat me up? Why'd you beat me up? He didn't understand what was going on. That's how bad he had got beat. And the guy that he had owed said, look, man, it's over with. Leave me alone. Stop walking up on me. I'm going to hurt you. He didn't stop walking up on him. To put things in even more perspective, as I look back and I replay moments like these, I think about when anybody could have said, hey, Brother Anthony, stop. It's over with. Don't keep following him. Don't keep walking with him or walking towards him or whatever. But nobody even attempted to get his attention. And to this day, because there were some people in that yard that was supposed to be cool with him, but to this day, I'm convinced that the only reason they didn't stop the fight or stop him for furthering things or continuing to follow those people around that had just beat him badly and were now threatening him again was because he was going home. And a lot of people do not want to see people go home in prison, especially on those higher levels, whether they acknowledge it or not. Don't get me wrong, there's a group of guys that celebrate those moments, but there are a percentage of people that feel bitter, that feel resentment, etc. It just is what it is, and nobody stopped it. Brother Anthony kept walking up on the guy, and before you know it, the gentleman turned around, had stabbed him twice. Evidently, one of the stabs had pierced his heart. It took his life. As Brother Anthony began to take a knee and lean against the side of the fence, everybody kind of understood what was going on. The yard got quiet. But I'm not going to lie, those of us that were cool with him understood he was about to go home. Once we seen a guard come out, we began to kind of yell and try to get his attention, man. And people can read that. They can say what they want. But when you see somebody that's all right, that you cool with, and you know something's wrong, you're probably going to call for help. Now, the crazy thing is the only reason the CO really came out or came that way was because he had came out the building and began calling Brother Anthony's last name. The CO was like, hey, and he couldn't find him. And the reason he was calling him was because his people had came up for a visit. Well, he didn't see him in the dorm or in the building, in the pod. He didn't see him on the yard, but he finally looked down towards the fence line and seeing the guy had been leaning against the fence. Long story short, by the time they had got to Brother Anthony and placed their hand on him, he had basically fell over. His lips had already begun to change color, and if you've seen some things in this life, you may have seen that. And he was gone over a $35 black and white 5-inch television set 2 days before he was supposed to go home to his family. They did not tell his family that day, from what I heard, that anything had happened to him. The story goes, at least this portion, because we don't know what happened behind the scenes, what the prison was saying to them, but we were told that they weren't notified until Monday, the actual day he was supposed to come home, which is even another tragedy. The moral of the story is, don't go to prison. Don't do things, man. Don't pay attention to the people that are trying to glorify what's going on when it comes to prison. Prison is a horrible place. Horrible things happen in there. People lose their lives. People lose their minds. People lose themselves. Stay free. If you like this content, go ahead, follow, subscribe, hit the notification, do all of those good things, because we're just getting started. We're going to keep building the content up, but we're going to keep changing the narrative on incarceration. We're going to tell you the stories. We're going to tell you the truth. We're going to tell you the ugly stuff. But hopefully you guys see some success stories along the way, and we keep going like that. Until next time, this is D100 TV, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.